What is up, ladies and gentlemen of the online Jamily? This, of course, here is JamiroFan2000 with another episode of the Jamiroquai Minute. All the latest Jamiroquai news, and former Jamiroquai band member Nate Williams has a new podcast, and he recently had in one of his episodes a band member of Jamiroquai. So let's get into more news about that. In previous Jamiroquai band member podcast news, I had to record a Jamiroquai Minute to note, not to mention I did not cover this news when it originally transpired several months back, but apparently one of the new band members of Jamiroquai, Howard Whitted, and of course Nate Williams, well, apparently Nate Williams recently left Jamiroquai. He was not seen at the last Jamiroquai concert in Malaga, Spain, but apparently he has moved on from Jamiroquai and is still making music and doing music in an independent sense. So massive thanks to Nate Williams for his time with Jamiroquai during the Automaton era between 2017 to 2020. His time in Jamiroquai and his musical contribution to Jamiroquai will not be forgotten. But that is not the topic of this episode of the Jamiroquai Minute. I'm here to note that Nate Williams, former band member of Jamiroquai, has a brand new music podcast that he just recently launched called In Sessions with ... podcast. Well, in this series, this podcast series, Nate Williams will be talking about musicmanship, the composition process, and many more really good topics covering about music. And it just so happens that in a November 8th episode of his podcast, he had Jamiroquai's own, his fellow bandmate, Rob Harris of Jamiroquai, on that podcast. And really cool to see Rob Harris hooking up with Nate Williams for a podcast episode to talk about musicmanship and all this stuff in the music making process. So if you'd like to check out both the new podcast from former Jamiroquai band member Nate Williams and the episode from November 8th of him having Rob Harris of Jamiroquai on his podcast, I'll be sure to put a link to his podcast page and, of course, that episode with Rob Harris that is currently available over on podcast.apple.com, both in the description area of this episode of the Jamiroquai Minute down below. So be sure to check out that great podcast and support it when you can, and check out that new episode with Rob Harris of Jamiroquai. But as always, this is JamiroFan2000, and I'll see you really soon with another Jamiroquai Minute. Bye-bye, everybody, and take care.